What's up, my peeps? Joshua Smithy with another GSD Mode podcast interview. This week, another epic, amazing, badass guest on the show, you guys. We got a guest that in 2007 went broke, man. He was a realtor before the market crash, but was really just reliant on referrals, didn't have a business plan set, didn't have systems, didn't have processes in place. Market crash, lost everything, had to get a side hustle job just to go out there and survive. So he was broke in 2007, and now today, fast forward, is netting over $1 million a year, doing 160 million plus in gross volume sales inside his real estate business in San Diego. So this dude is a machine, man. Again, man, he's got his systems, processes dialed in. He's got his team dialed in. So we go really deep on that. The mistakes that he made when he tried to build out his team the first time, what didn't work, how he had to reverse that, rechange thing, how it works today, how he creates his culture. We even talk about pay and splits and structure and, you know, the right people to hire for the right position inside your real estate team. So before we jump into today's interview, I want to plug our sponsors that make this show possible. Our first sponsor is my personal coaching mentorship program, my 90-Day Mastery Bootcamp, www.90daymastery.com. This is my personal mentorship program. We spend about 40 live hours of training and coaching together, as well as you get daily access to me for 4 months. So inside this program, I'm giving you my playbook. I show you exactly what I do, what I've done to go out there and sell over $1 billion of real estate in my career, to go out there and have sold over 5,000 plus homes, and what I'm doing currently today to sell over 1 to 2 homes every single day. My team is on track for this year to do, when I'm recording this intro video, to do over 650 transactions this year alone. So I'm walking through and showing you step by step exactly what I am doing, what my team is doing to create that success. I show you what to do it, how to do it, from start to finish, right? So we talk about everything real estate. This is a complete program. There's nothing that is left out. So www.90daymastery.com, where you can learn more about the program, see demos on the program, see tons and tons and tons of video testimonials and hundreds of 5-star reviews. If you are going to register, make sure that you do register. If you're committed to your career, jump into this, because this will take your business and your life to the next level. Make sure to use promo code Live Mastery, all caps, all one word, all together. Live, LIVEMASTERY. Again, all together, all caps, all one word. Second sponsor is Perfect Storm, which is the website software that I utilize inside my business. I'm a partial owner of the program. I've been able to help design the program to be as effective as possible. This is software designed by a real estate agent, right? So everything from your lead generation to your branding to an extremely insanely effective CRM on the back end, so you can be as effective and efficient as you possibly can at setting appointments. It's a plug and play system. All the drips, all the scripts, all the follow protocols, I have personally written everything. It's all in there. It's a plug and play system for you, and is only $199 a month. It's as powerful as the $1,000 or $1,500 a month programs out there for only $199 per month. So that's www.perfectstormnow.com. Make sure to use promo code MASTERYPSN, all caps, all one word, all together, MASTERYPSN. That will save you the registration fee, get it to you for only $199 a month, and that's on a month-to-month, so you don't have to sign a contract if you go that route. Last sponsor is REO Mastery, all right? So I'm sorry, REO University. It's www.reomasteryuniversity.com. This is our REO University training, 22 in-depth hardcore modules of how to get into REO, how to service that REO, how to do BPOs, how to do trash outs, how to do cash for keys, the whole entire process from start to finish, A to Z, everything you need to know with REO. It's a program that my business partner, Ben Barber, and I created. Ben Barber is the most brilliant guy I've ever met when it comes to REO. He worked on the REO side for the banks. He actually designed a lot of the systems that you see out there that still exist today in REO. He personally sold and managed over 11,000 REO assets working for the banks. He knows the inside out workings of the banks, the stuff that most asset managers will get fired if they tell their real estate agents. So we've teamed up, right? We bring his brilliance plus what I know after working successfully with over 35 banks over the years, selling thousands of REOs as a real estate agent. We combine both of our knowledge Foundation created a 22 in-depth module training program that you're able to jump into and go out there and kick ass and have massive success with that. So it's www.reomasteryuniversity.com. It's only $997, or you can split up into 3 payments of $333 a month, spread out over 3 months, no finance fees. So check that out. Make sure to jump into that program right away. All right, you guys, well, we are going to jump into today's interview. Hopefully you guys enjoy this as much as I did. We'll see you there. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode interview. Every single week, we interview top entrepreneurs and straight up top badasses that they're dominating their space. These are people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create big, amazing, epic lives for themselves, their families, as well as have a big impact on others. And that's why our guests agree to come on and share their time with you and all their strategies that's creating massive success inside their life and in their world. So today, you guys, special guest on the show. We've got a agent that is entrepreneur, realtor, coach, trainer. This is a guy that in 2007 had nothing, was broke, right? And went out in a short period of time and built this massively successful real estate team, which does well over $100 million a year in production. I believe in 2017, the year that we're in, is on track to do $150 million in production, which is just insane, right? As well as creating all those own successes in his own life have led to him creating a coaching program that other realtors can model and follow and go out there and create those same successes. So really stoked and honored to have Daniel be on the show, my friend.
Cool, man. Well, I'm happy to be here. I've watched your entire thing here grow, GSD, from way back when I first noticed it, and I've watched this thing grow over the years. So it's fun actually being here live with you, man. And thanks for having me. It's good to get to know you.
Yeah, man, I truly appreciate that, dude. That means a lot. So, all right, dude, let's rewind the clocks here. Let's talk about 2007 and onward, and then of course we'll get into what you're doing today to experience the growth and not just growth, but you're also, what always impresses me is creating that type of growth in an extremely competitive marketplace too, which we'll get into all of that. But all right, so 2007, man, you're broke. Now, if we look at 2007, were you in real estate at that time? I mean, had you created success and then lost it because of the crash and had to rebuild, or walk us through what happened, and then we'll kind of talk about how you turn things around.
Yeah. So, I know, you're in Phoenix, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So I know guys in Phoenix, you look at agents in San Diego and you're thinking, oh man, those guys, they don't even really know how to, but it really takes to build a business because they go out, sell a few $1 million homes and they're all set. And over here we have to go sell 100 homes, right? And so, but that's the truth. That's what goes on in San Diego. You have all of these agents we have 22,000 agents in San Diego County. And your average agent's selling 3.7 homes a year. And I was one of those agents that I got licensed actually in 2005. So to answer your question, yes, I was in business in 2007, but I was just selling 6, 7, 8 homes a year, which I guess was more than, double the average. So good on me. But it was really just which one of my dad's friends is going to call this week, or, when's my phone going to ring with a family member that wants to do something. And meanwhile, I'll be at the beach. Right. And that actually unbelievably equaled a 6-figure income.
Yep.
But when you're 23 years old, 24 years old, and you're making 100,000, you're making, 200,000 one year in one of those nonsensical years. Well, first off, I didn't even really understand like GCI versus net. So I'm sure I actually don't even know what I made because I wasn't really calculating it correctly back then. But I also thought I was rich, right? I mean, I was like, 100 grand. I thought I was richest guy around. And so, of course, I was spending money much faster than I could keep it. 2000s, I was partying. I was young. I was a kid. I wasn't married yet. I was totally different life. Fun life, but different life. But anyway, market starts to turn in 2007, especially in the upper end in San Diego County. 2007, I mean, that's like 2008 in a lot of other parts of the country. 2007, high-end San Diego, you knew we were in trouble. Sales were gone. And sure enough, we get to the point where I'm paying my rent. I realize I don't have any money in my bank account. And luckily, I received one of those checks that come in the mail. from your credit card company. So I wrote a check straight from my credit card, paid my rent that way. And I'm telling you, there was a seismic shift in my entire makeup, man. My DNA just changed forever right there. And actually almost too much. Like I became so conservative. I became so affected by that actually my wife really was a huge help in allowing me to live again, right? But that's what happened. That's how I ended up dead broke in 2007.
Yep. No, and it sounds like you and
business, right? I just had like friends and let's see when the phone rings, and otherwise I'll be at the beach.
Yeah. It sounds like you and I had such similar past, man. Because I got licensed 25 years old. Or, I'm sorry, in 2005, I was 23 years old, and same thing in the beginning. I worked hard, but I didn't treat it as a business. I really, I wasn't tracking. Just like you, man. I was just money was just coming in. I just working hard was my business plan, right? And with that market crash, man, it all kind of woke all of us up. As Warren Buffett says, when the tide goes out, you see who's skinny dipping, right? So,
well, it's amazing how that has become the biggest blessing. Yep. Because when all that, like you said, cash was rolling in, that's kind of what it felt like. You didn't even really understand how or why it was happening, but it just was. That literally stopped overnight, and it was done. Like, Dad, family members weren't doing anything anymore. Dad's friends weren't calling anymore. Everything was just completely done. And that was the moment where you either had to get out of the way and leave the industry, and I'm sure you experienced the same thing, or you had to actually become a business person.
Yep. And you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, most people just said, all right, this isn't for me. Peace out. Let me go do something else. You decide to stay in the game, get committed. And you're 100% right. Those low moments in our life, those biggest painful moments, if we allow them to teach us the necessary lessons, they become our greatest assets, right? So, so now that this has happened, how did you turn that around to become this great asset? Like what did you start doing at that moment to turn things around?
Well, I knew I needed to figure out this whole lead generation thing I'd heard people talk about. And I actually, during that crash and there was a period of finding yourself. It wasn't just automatically, the market crashed. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm off and running with my business plan. There's a period of time where you're figuring it out and finding yourself, so to speak. And part of what I experimented with was I actually started selling, you remember all those debt settlement lead commercials on the radio, right? Settle your debt, 50 cents on the dollar with your credit cards, all that. And so I started selling debt settlement leads for somebody. I found out that the information I was selling was just completely just bogus. I mean, they were bad leads. But in that, I realized, I thought to myself, well, what if I could generate good debt settlement leads? And so I kind of figured out that you could have a website that would create registrations, essentially. You could, if you had a website that you could move traffic to, and you could capture people's name, phone number, address, email, how much debt they had, and how long they'd had it for. There was some other metric that you could take that record and sell it for $20. So I took a little bit of money that I did have, because end of 2007, I did end up making a couple of sales. And so I had a little bit of cash, and I built this debt settlement lead gen site, which completely failed. And I was out 10 grand, and I only had very little other money left over. I don't remember exactly, but I'd say I had $5,000 or so remaining. And I said, okay, well, that didn't work, but the concept still makes sense. And I think, and I'm starting to realize, like, okay, well, this is lead generation. I've been hearing in real estate about lead generation. What if I created a real estate website that generated leads? Now, I'm already fast forwarding you from, 2007 through 2008 into 2009 while all this is happening and other things were going on. But these are the most significant. So I built a lead gen site in 2009, which today are a lot more popular. They're a lot more common. Your Boomtowns of the world, Commissions Inc., Buyer Points, all these websites that are true lead gen sites that are meant to capture information and create a lead for you to follow up with. That wasn't the norm back then. If you remember, everybody's website was done with like a cowboy hat and thumbs up and like a shimmering tooth, and that was supposed to make everyone call. So I took that website down and I built a site that didn't even have my picture on it. Everyone thought around me that I was crazy because how would people know who I am and all that? But I essentially built an early version of all these lead generation platforms that we now have. It was a WordPress site based off Diverse Solutions, if you remember that, IDX. And all of a sudden I was generating leads, 5 a day, 10 a day, 17 a day was the peak. And from there I realized I needed leverage in people and agents, and that was a whole nother series of failures and rebuilds until we get here.
Yeah, no, that's killer, man. I mean, so
I don't know if that was the long version or the quick version.
Yeah, no, I love it, dude. So here's what's so cool about this, and just so that as you're watching, you can kind of maybe connect your own dots in your own life. So I mean, essentially, dude, you were still trying real estate and selling some real estate, but you really were out there having to create a little side hustle to make some income just to survive. But then you found, hey, with a side hustle, that wasn't even really real estate related. You were able to connect the dots, see how you could bring that in your real estate business. And then obviously it massively paid off, right? So, all right, so you get to the point now, fast forward, like you said, 2009 or so, 17 leads in a day, or 16, 17 leads in a day at your peak. And you realize, okay, now I need some help, right? Well, a lot of people, when it comes to leveraging out, like teams have become obviously a very popular thing, but very few people know how to grow a team the right way. And I'm not sure if you grew it the right way out of the gate, but how did you start growing it? What were some of either the good things that you did or the bad things that you did that you had to learn from that allowed you to create such an epic team today?
Yeah, and that's exactly what Agent Academy, our training arm, is all about. Is I was there, right? I was there when I said, oh shoot, I got all these leads. Okay, so all of a sudden I had buyer agents. And well, they weren't even buyer agents. I had agents, but they were basically doing purchase business for the most part. But the split structures were completely out of whack. I didn't understand I wasn't making any money. I didn't understand that what I had built, what I had brought these guys on to do, that it couldn't scale. There was no system for them to run. Another hole in it was that I built the lead gen side before I had built a follow-up system. And that's exactly like a buyer going out and looking at homes before being pre-approved, which as agents we all think is ridiculous because how do they know what they're looking for? And they're typically looking for the wrong thing. But it's exactly the same error in order that as agents we make in having lead generation that's then going to pour into a bucket with an empty bottom with no follow-up system. So, it was rogue. And I'm sure you went through something similar where we had these leads come in, there's people working them, but sure enough, they're having success. I mean, we're selling homes and it's starting to grow and they're doing better, but there was no system or there was no business around it or system or culture or values around it, nothing. So what I was really doing was just building up their business, and sure enough, then they would go and building up their business and they'd go. The split structure, like I said, was one that would never allow me to reinvest back into the business or to scale or to be able to pay for an operations team. So we had to, of course, tear that down. We'd lose everyone. We'd try again. We'd lose everyone. We'd try again. But in the meantime, I was traveling the country, and this is something I did do right, is I was traveling the country, going to workshops, seminars, conferences, reading books, and just trying to learn everything I possibly could. So we eventually could get it right, which at some point I believe we have, right? But it was an evolution. It was there was a lot of failure involved.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and I slightly misspoke in the intro. The 150 million is what you did last year. This year, you're well on track to supersede that. So, yeah, I mean, you don't get to that type of production unless you've got it right. Right? So eventually, but a lot of times, like we can know what to do, but we don't know what not to do, and sometimes we have to experience those. I know for me, like I've had to reinvent my own team probably a half a dozen times. Right? To figure out what works, and there really is no one size fits all, but there is more of a correct way to do it. So based on what you know now, maybe somebody's listening to this and they want to go out there. They're at that point where they need to start growing a team. You know, what would you recommend? And I know that this could be a week-long podcast to really dissect this, but knowing and making those mistakes and doing what you do now, I mean, where do people start, man? Is it developing the support and, support staff side first and then, evolving it from there? Or where do you recommend they start?
Sure. So what's interesting is there's really two answers to this, okay? One answer is actually what most of us learn and teach and coach and consult others to do, because we understand how people get into the industry. So, and that's the road I'll take you down here in a moment. But the other interesting question or answer could be that you just asked me, how would you start a business? What would you do? Interestingly enough, if you and I, or you and I listening, right, anybody, if you and I went out and we partnered on an ice cream store, what would we do? Well, we'd figure out our cashier system. We'd figure out what the look of the store was going to be. We would hire probably a couple of employees for different shifts. We'd have a payment system. I mean, we would literally hire and spend all that money and create the look of the store and actually have a business before we even open the doors on day one. In real estate, we go about it so incredibly different. But it's just interesting, right? What would it look like if more people did that? If more people just built out the infrastructure completely, then opened their doors? And I haven't done that, by the way. I mean, I'll take you down the path right now in a moment. But that would be interesting to me, Josh, is why aren't there more real estate teams that get off the ground that way? But the other answer I promised was you really have to find the person that's going to join you and be your and assuming you're the rainmaker, that's going to be your complement on the operation side of the business. But this person is a very special, very unique person. There's a reason that so many fail to find the right person here. I was just having a conversation with somebody where we were discussing how so many people in our industry, they'll become enamored with, say someone that they found from a Fortune 500 company, or they're working in a business that sounds like a big business. But let's be clear on the fact that, take a Procter & Gamble, a big company, a big established dinosaur company that sounds fancy, right? Hey, I got someone from this big Fortune 500 company. Well, if Procter & Gamble grows by 5% this year, they're going to throw the biggest party of the decade at their company. They're going to celebrate it like crazy. But if you or I grow by 5% this year, we're going to cry ourselves to sleep. Okay? And this person that's working at Procter & Gamble, like, they had their stuff together. They had their systems, their CRM, all their operational systems, right? Their checklists, everything is tidy. When that person walks into your business, your real estate business, it's messy. It's going a million miles an hour. Things are breaking. You're building systems, 1 week, and you're having to rebuild them 6 months later because the business has evolved. The type of person that can hang in that environment, number one, is you have to really screen for that. I would really suggest that you try to scare the crap out of anybody from accepting your offer to work with you. They have to know, like, that Procter & Gamble person isn't necessarily the type of person that can thrive in a business that's growing 20, 30, 50% a year the way that our real estate businesses can. And that isn't a person that's looking at, hey, when's 5 o'clock so I could check out? And by the way, it's Friday, so don't call me till Monday. Like, that's just not the kind of person that's going to help you grow your real estate operation from ground up. So that's number one. Number two is, once you find that person, they have to be ready to come in. And regardless of the training we give them, let's be honest with one another. You're going a million miles an hour. You're brilliant as the rainmaker. There's a lot of genius to you, but in the eyes of this operationally inclined person who's actually organized and systematic, you're a disaster, right? It's a mess. And so that person has to be okay with that, and then to come in and get dirty and fix things and build them, but to document them as they go. So Josh, this first person needs to come in and take over anything that's listing and transaction management oriented, and anything that's marketing deployment. And here's what I mean, marketing coordination, meaning you're not asking them to be a marketer, but your touch system, your calendared monthly marketing that happens, right, where every month this happens, that happens. They have to be able to get that out the door, manage transactions and listings, take care of the customer service side of the business, and handle all kinds of weird and wacky stuff that you're going to throw at them. You can say shit on get shit done mode, right?
Yep.
Wacky shit, right? You're going to throw wacky shit at them. They have to be okay with that. And they have to understand their email's going to go off at some weird hour on Sunday and there's going to be an emergency. And I'm just trying to impress upon you that this is a special person you need to screen for. But when you get them and they're okay with that environment, even though it looks like chaos, underneath it all, what they're actually doing is documenting everything they're doing and creating and systematizing one thing and then the next and then the next and then the next. To scale a business to, say, our 150 plus million or growing, or a business the size of yours, Josh, is that underneath it all, there's actually a lot of calm in building one system and making it really solid to layer on the next and then the next and then the next. And before you know it, the compounding effect of that becomes a very big business with momentum, right? Like, have you read Good to Great?
Yeah. Yep.
That's the flywheel, right? That's the when you can do that and actually layer something in and make it from something you're doing to making it a habit, not your habit, but a habit of the business. And then the next one, that's the type of person you're looking for. Am I answering the question you're looking for? That person you need, you're meanwhile selling homes, but then you start to layer in the next few positions, which I could describe what I think they would be, which I would start actually getting rid of the next thing you don't need to be doing, which is showing properties. So then you start bringing in the showing agents, then you bring in buyer side, then you let go of listings, then you eventually let go of actually even, that next step where you could have a CEO in place running the business. So I spent a month in Mexico this year, a month in New York last year, that kind of thing.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. And both of you and I, now it's been, to outsiders, it may seem like an easy path, but I think for both of us, we can sit there and attest that it hasn't been easy, but we've both been able to become, true business owners. I mean, I'm like you, where I work about 2 hours a month in my real estate team and do 700 transactions a year, but we've been able to have, our processes, our systems, everything's so dialed in where people just follow the processes and systems. My only job is to inspect what I expect on the systems and put the right people in place. But what I love about the E-Myth Revisited with Michael Gerber, it's like people, regardless of their greatness, they can never show you their greatness if they don't have proven systems and processes to follow. So what you're saying, though, is most team leaders, because they don't have the gift of maybe building out those systems, they're the visionary, they're the rainmaker, they need to employ that person that can help build out those systems and processes, as well as take off all the non-money making activities on their plate.
Yeah, what was a turning point for me was I read a book, I read Dan Kennedy's No BS, Time Management for Entrepreneurs. And for a time management book, I'm telling you, this book is awesome. It's actually an incredibly entertaining time management book. And if you've ever read Dan Kennedy, you know that makes sense. But it was for whatever reason that book that finally made me, it just hit. The whole thing, I mean, we always say it to one another, that you can't be doing $20 hour work or $10 hour work if you want to make $50 an hour, $100 an hour, $500 an hour. That you have to do the activities that match the pay that you're expecting. Well, we all accept that as as we all accept that as a truth, but we don't always have that sink in and actually live that. Few people live that. For whatever reason, that book, that moved me from just believing it to living it. And what's amazing is that when you actually do that, when you do let go of the $10 and $20 and $30 and $40, when your income starts to change, that saying hasn't only been around for 100 or whatever amount of years because it was a nice little saying. It actually happens to be true if you practice it, but it takes faith to practice it.
Yep. Love it, dude. So then when it comes to finding, those right people, when you're hiring, I mean, it sounds like you're getting clarity on exactly the role that person needs to take in. But then from there, I mean, are you issuing any type of profile testing, like a DISC test or the Wealth Dynamics or like an AVA, right, to make sure that they're the right person for that seat, right? They're a culture fit. What does that look like when you're identifying that?
So you were skipping out on me a lot. The tech side was just choppy. So did you say, what are we looking for to make sure we have the right fit in the business?
Yeah. I mean, when you're identifying, let's just say that first person that you're talking about, I mean, are you doing any type of profile testing with them, like a DISC test, like a Wealth Dynamics or AVA test to ensure that you have that right fit?
So we run now today in our business, we run career visioning from start to finish, which is, a KW system, but whether you're a KW or not, you could actually go study it and do it. This is far from a KW commercial of any sort, but that's the process we run. So yes, we do what's called a KPA, which is one of their assessments. But you could always substitute that with a DISC or with even like a Myers-Briggs. You could substitute it with something else. The important thing about career visioning isn't career visioning, okay? The important thing about career visioning is that it's a process. And that the goal when you're hiring somebody is, think about if you've ever lived with someone, how different it was knowing them or being friends with them or dating them to living with them. And when you're hiring, most of us go on one date and get married. But so your hiring process, first of all, has to exist. You actually legitimately have to have a process. And you have to try to mimic or simulate living with the person as closely as you possibly can, meaning that no, you're not moving into an apartment together. What it means is that you're creating multiple meetings in multiple environments with different conversations, and you're going deep with one another. You're truly getting to know who you are, who they are, what their goals are, what their motivations are, where they want to be in 5 years, what they hold dear and close to them. You want to understand exactly who they are. So I do recommend, I mean, it's great having, like a DISC, and we use the DISC actually plus the KPA, but that's one small aspect. I would then encourage you, whether you're doing career visioning or not, to establish, okay, first you're going to review resumes, then you're going to talk about their DISC assessment and really, what was right, what was wrong. It's called validating a DISC assessment or validating any behavioral test. And then perhaps you're going to, yours could even be that you're going to go to lunch or that you're going to meet their spouse. And then the following time you're going to, if you don't have a team already, because this is your first hire, perhaps you're going to have your mentor or someone you trust or someone that's been in business a long time that you really, that you believe in. Maybe they're going to interview your finalists. And so I would just create a multi-step process, but don't let it be random. Okay? Establish what it's going to be, document it, and then run everyone through the identical process and through the identical questions. Because that's the only way you can get a baseline to actually judge each candidate against the other.
Yep. Love it. So you kind of hit on before that most real estate agents pigeonhole themselves into just having a job, maybe even a high paying job for the whole entire career. They don't treat this as a business. So you've got that key hire that operations person can start creating the systems and processes and start turning this and evolving this into a business for you. A mistake that I see a lot of team leaders make is they set their compensation structure based on, because most people are still growing a team and you're still in production. Right. Well, most team leaders are still doing 70, 80% of their own production of the entire team, and they're getting 100% of that. And they don't really set those up on structures of, hey, well, eventually I've got to exit and be able to pay myself a salary. And if you're not comfortable disclosing what your structures are, that's totally cool. But just would like to get your advice, what advice that you'd have for those listening of how to create an effective compensation structure off the bat. That's a win for people because you got to have the agents want to join your team and be able to do well for themselves there, but also allows you to be profitable at the end of the day.
So we're talking about compensation for agents or for W-2 staff?
I mean, we can hit on both, right? Because they're both, I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to what's your net at the end of the day? So they're both critical components.
Well, number one, let's start with staff, right? Because we've discussed the first hire, or maybe it's not your first hire, but you're going to go make your first significant hire. You're going to rehire that first hire. So one of the biggest things or mistakes that, in my view, agents make is tying that operations person who is not a salesperson. They are not you. They're not motivated by what you're motivated or by what motivates you. Tying their income to a percentage of GCI. It's a huge mistake that isn't apparently huge in the beginning, but in the long term, if you're actually going to scale the business up and all of a sudden you have a chunk of gross revenue before profit going to an operations person, that's a person that's probably not going to be able to work with you in the long run. So, in your best case scenario, you might have an awesome person who will then be forced to leave or restructure their comp. Let me explain. An operations person, a non-salesperson, the way you want to compensate them is they need to have a base salary that takes money off the table as a worry. Okay? Doesn't mean you have to pay them the world. But a lot of people in our industry try to pay them like 20 grand a year and then, the rest will come from sales. So what you now have is an operations person that's not focusing on what they're supposed to focus on, which is systematizing your business and organizing everything that's all of the chaos around them. Instead, they're worried about, hey, did we get that listing or what's going on? And oh my God, what's the closing date? Really? The contingencies were extended? Oh my goodness, do I have enough? Hold on, I'm going to log into online banking to see if I have enough money to pay my rent. Okay, when you have employees worried about paying rent, they cannot perform to the max of their ability for you and for the company. So you really need to just establish a base salary that makes them comfortable. I didn't say rich, but that at least makes them comfortable, takes money off the table. Now, if you want to incentivize them through the performance of the business, my business, we have a profit share 401k plan. So every year we establish that all profit above a certain level will be shared at a certain percentage, up to 25% of base salary. As an example of an incentive-based pay program, but it's above that profit threshold we established, and it's profit. It's not gross commission. So I would discourage as much as possible people from using GCI or any percentage of GCI with one admin in the beginning, because what you'll find, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, Josh, because I did that at one point. I'm sure you did that at one point, and you start to miss those points because once you realize that you have to hire inside sales or you don't have to hire, but if you choose to hire inside sales, and once you have listing agents, buyer agents, and you're scaling this whole thing out, and you have, depending on the size of your business, mine has 6 figures of expenses on a monthly basis. That starts to bleed the company dry. Josh, you ever watch Shark Tank?
Yep,
okay.
For sure.
So what's his name? Mr. Wonderful, Kevin.
Yep.
He always tries to do these deals where it looks like he's taking only a little bit of equity, but he's taking dollars right off the top, right off of revenue. And all the other sharks freak out because, and the presenters never take his deals. That's because when you're taking dollars off of revenue right off the top, you're bleeding the company. It's not going to work out. So that's my advice. Okay, just basic advice is try to just take money off the table for W-2 employees, make them be able to focus on their job and on growing the business, and then show them the path to, once we reach certain thresholds, here's how your income could grow, or here's how your position or your influence could grow within the company.
Yep. And I couldn't agree more, dude. And let me just hit on one other thing with that too, because you talked about this earlier. It's the importance of getting the right people in the right seat, right? Because your admin, unlike the salespeople, they're not necessarily money motivated. They want security, they want culture, they want other things. So we found, because I made that same mistake of paying them a chunk of each deal or whatever, and that's not really what incentivized them, right? So knowing what truly incentivized them, whether it's little compliments or culture events, and creating a great fun environment that they're excited to be within, and flexibility in their schedule so they can take their kids to doctor, but whatever that may be, right? So often we also build these compensation structures based on what we would want. but these aren't people that are motivated by the same things that we're motivated. So, I think that's why I love the DISC test, right? So I can identify those things, but I couldn't agree with you more there.
For me, it's a deal killer, by the way, when, if we're interviewing somebody for an operations role and they want to go get their license and, also sell some homes every now and then. Some team leaders are like, awesome, they're going to sell some homes also. I'm like, absolutely not. You're not getting this job anymore. You could interview over here in our sales department, but I want them to be operationally inclined people. I just want them to, that's where they need to be. And if they're also sort of selling homes on the weekend, or they need to leave office early because, hey, I'm going to sell 6 homes a year on the side type of thing. For me, it doesn't work. I don't like hybrid jobs. I like focused jobs. Salespeople, compensation there, what would be helpful for me to describe? Because there's so many different positions. You want me to, I could take you through any aspect of you. What would you like me to go through, Josh?
Yeah, I guess if we just want to hit on, because there's you talked about the W-2, the operation side, then most teams, kind of have on the commission split side, if you will, are going to have agents that are working for them, whether that's an agent that can do buyer seller, or whether you want to create that assembly line where you just have buyers agents, you just have listing agents, and then ISAs are definitely becoming a huge thing. So and again, and I know time's limited, but just so people start building this right off the bat of what they need to be careful with, because you can easily, get to the point where what you have left out of the commission, and then you have to cover like your $100,000 of expenses, right? I know so many team leaders that are doing $100 million a year and are making less than they did as an individual agent, because they just pigeonhole themselves in this massive mess by getting the compensation structures wrong.
Yeah. Well, there's a few rules to go by that could keep you safe. Ultimately, there's a number that you need to watch as the business owner, which is your gross margin. Okay, so gross margin is this. Let's say that someone on your team does a deal. It brings in $10,000. $10,000 is what it paid in gross commission. Okay, that's what the seller paid in commission. Gross margin is what is left over after you pay the agent on your team. So if the agent on your team makes 40% of it, for example, they'd get $4,000. You have $6,000 of gross margin. Then, of course, expenses come off that, leaving you with net income. That gross margin number, once you're being left with any less than 50%, though I would tell you less than 60%, but definitely 50. 50 is like just from there, it's a killer. Then you're going to be in trouble. It's going to be hard for you to invest into all of the lead generation opportunities that you're going to have if you want to still keep any money. So you can chop it up a number of different ways, but once you calculate based on the amount of listing sides you're going to do over the course of the year and what you're paying on the listing side, and on the amount of buyer sides you're going to do over the course of the year and what you're paying on the buyer side. And once you blend that and get a blended rate for your gross margin, you better be sure that your company, I say, is keeping at least 60% of that. Why? Because then you can have 30 to 40% to spend on expenses, so your business can net 20 to 30%. My business last year net 37%. This year, it'll probably net about 28 to 30% roughly. So, but we've moved our sales number up significantly. So our net will be, we've made some changes to allow us to scale the sales team, basically. Hire more agents, scale the sales team, the net percentage being a little bit lower, but the dollar figure being larger. But that's a rule, right? So if you just take that rule and you start experimenting with any combination of splits, but you ensure that your business has a 60% net margin, gross margin after paying, which is what you are keeping after paying your agents, but before your expenses, you're going to be okay. You're going to be able to be competitive in the marketplace and be able to spend on the marketing that you want. A really so we've moved, you mentioned like the assembly line, buyer agents, listing agents versus just sales agents. So we have sales agents, but when you have sales agents, there's one key position that I never hear anybody talking about. I hear people talking about listing agents and buyer agents, but there's a position that is called a company listing agent. Okay, so you could have sales agents. Now, the reality is those sales agents, the bulk of their business is going to be buyer sides. But if their cousin wants to sell a house, we let them list the house. Now, those sales agents tend to have splits that are pushing upwards of into that 40 range, 45 range, or right in there, depending on where the lead came from, or if it was company generated or them generated. But the key to keeping profitability is having the company listing agent position. All the marketing that the business is generating, right, from anything from radio to podcasts to agent referrals from around the country to farming, and the money that the business the company is generating, listing side business off of its marketing, I would suggest that those inbound calls we send to inside sales. And the reason why is inside sales will then book all those company generated listing appointments to a company listing agent. That company listing agent is on a much lower split. Okay? Much, much, much lower. But their calendar has a couple appointments on it every single day. So it's like as close to a corporate position as you can get in real estate, where this person's job is simply to come in and crush listings. Like, they're a listing killer. This is what they do. It's the only thing they do. And you don't want them doing anything else because you're spending money on marketing. And so you need to trust those appointments to someone that's going to be able to crush them. But also, because they have such a guaranteed income, because all your appointments are going to that 1, 2, 3 people. And so you understand, if you had 25 sales agents, you possibly might only need 3 company listing agents. Okay? You have very few of them. So they have a very high floor on their income because you're constantly putting appointments on their calendar. Obviously, if they're not converting, they're gone, right? So they're converting. But because you're giving them so much volume, you can drop the percentage, which allows you to have the profitability that you need to have. That position's key for profitability.
Yep.
You don't hear people talking about that, right? It's always one of the listing agents, buyer's agents, but that company listing agent. I just add the word company to it because it's so that it's understood that this is like as close to a job as you can get in real estate.
Yep. Love it. And one, like you said, the split's less, but they're being spoon fed so much. I mean, the appointments are getting set. They don't have to pay for leads. They're not lead generating. They're not lead following up. They're just conducting the appointments. Then I'm sure once the appointments, they land that listing, it probably goes to your listing coordinator and their capacity. I mean, they can easily be carrying 50 plus listings each.
Yep.
And it all shakes out in the end.
We're still talking about 6 figures.
Yep. Love it, dude. So, before you had a model where you just fed leads, right? But like you said, they would take their leads, build their business, and then they would bounce, right? And now today, right? I mean, you've created an organization that people are, I'm sure you're providing some leads and you're setting appointments as you talked about for them. The commission splits are lower. I think team leaders always think that agents just want leads and they get so concerned about getting those commission splits, the perception they're going to have those commission splits. Well, you're living proof, right, that you can absolutely grow that. And that I don't think agents really care so much about that. At the end of the day, it's how much you make, not what is the percentage of, 100% is 0, right? So you have 2 different models, but now you're hiring more agents, your retention is way higher, you're more profitable. So what do you say is the key with that outside of the structure that you have and the systems in place, but delivering value, delivering a great culture? Like, what are the other things that you deliver for people that join your team that stay with you for so long?
It's going to start with making sure you have the right people. And the number one way that we have built such a great culture is our entire team is in the office at 8 in the morning. Okay. Everybody. I mean, literally everybody's here at 8 a.m. So that right there, just right off the bat, 90-something% of the realtor population is eliminated from even possibly being on our team because they're not willing to do it. And there's only certain types of people that are willing to do it. So automatically, we're already dealing with people that are likely good fits. And of course, they go through the whole hiring process. But just that one element already gives you a certain type of person, which fits our business. If you're a team leader and your value to the team is leads and splits, you're going to have a revolving door forever. Like that is the best way to have a team that you're constantly having to rebuild, because leads and splits eventually become, there's no long-term value to that. They can, if splits, hey, they can go to 100% shop anytime they feel like it, just like that. Leads, there's so much information out there on how to get leads. Right? There's an abundance of information out there that it's really not a secret. They could go get leads. You can just submit a credit card and boom, you have leads. So that's the second. So what do you give as value? The entire environment, if you came to our office, we have scoreboards up. I mean, we're recruiting for people that want to win, that are competitive, that are curious, and that are smart. And that right there, and are gritty. Okay, people that are just gritty and ready to come to work. So there's scoreboards up in the office with how many sales, how many pending, how many appointments set. And trust me, no one here wants to be last. Like it kills them. Our number one guy at one point was the number two guy, and it freaking killed the guy. I mean, you've never seen someone start working harder and he's number one again. So that builds the culture, the training, the masterminding. One really simple tool that we use is, a lot of team leaders will talk about, hey, how do you get your agents to come to meetings, as an example? I can't get them to show up and they don't participate and it's a drag. Well, everyone shows up to our meetings and they're all incredibly engaged. Why? Okay, it's not because I have a nicer way of asking them to do it or a meaner way of asking them to do it. It's not why. The reason why is that they're at that meeting for their business, to build our company. And what I mean, over the course of the week, as an example, we have a simple Google Doc, and it's the sales team's issues list. And as they run into obstacles, or this isn't working right, or wouldn't this be better, or I have a conflict here, they're adding their issues to the issues list. So what do we spend over half of our sales team meeting on? Their issues that they present, that we solve to remove their obstacles to improve their company. And so I've realized that my job is simply to pour into them. Like, my job is them. My job is my people. And when I pour into them, they pour into the business, and the business gets taken care of, our clients are taken care of, and it all comes back. And that's the proper leadership cycle. But most people think that the business has to take care of me, right? Which isn't the case. So that all of that, you have to have the value to be training, growth, showing them career paths. You have to constantly be painting the vision of where are we going as a company. We're a transparent company, so they understand where we are on profit, on revenue, on expenses. They understand all of it, and we're not afraid to show them where we're at. Because coming back to compensation for agents, isn't it funny, Josh, that you and I, we would kill to net 40% in our business. But our agents, they get to do that. Like, and when you and I net whatever we net, we don't get to take the money home and hand it over to our family. We actually have to retain cash in our operating account to pay next month's expenses. When they net what they net, they actually take the money home and give it to their wife. And they literally just take the cash home. So it's also education around those types of issues and showing them, just giving them awareness around all that. Yeah. But definitely, whatever the value is, it can't be leads and it can't be splits.
Yeah, love it, man. Love that you brought up all those points. And again, I couldn't agree more. And that transparency is so huge, because it's like people have a perception in their head. It's not reality, but perceived reality is more important than reality. So unless you're transparent, they think you're making all this money hands over fist. And when you show them the true numbers, right? Then they're like, oh crap. Well, maybe I don't want to take on the risk of having $100,000 a month overhead. Maybe I don't want to go to that low of a profit margin, right? So, love that you brought all that up, man. So
the right people are okay with you making money too. What happens if I'm not making money? This business closes. They have no jobs. If I'm not making money, the whole thing ends, right? Like, they need me. They need the company to make money. And there's a difference between me and the company, right? But, people that work at Apple, they're not pissed off that Apple made $1 billion or whatever. They need Apple to make $1 billion. That gives them job security.
Yep. Couldn't agree more, dude. So then you mentioned that between last year and this year, you made some shifts to allow scalability. Can you just kind of share with us what maybe some of those shifts that you've made to allow you to scale it to that next level?
Yeah, what we did was we went from the specialized, you only list, you only buy model to sales agent model, the general agent model. But of course, we still retain that company listing agent that we talked about. We gave them the opportunity to earn a little bit more because in our old model, it was just the split's the split. I don't care if it's your best friend, your mom, your wife, or if it's a lead that we've never met. It was the split's the split. Now, and I love that because it was simple. So the negative to what I'm saying is we added a tad bit of complexity, but we are allowing now for more to be earned from SOI, open house, and prospecting. SOI, open house, and prospecting earns them more. And then company-generated business actually earns them a little bit less. So that's a change we made. But as a team, we're pouring into coaching them on SOI, open house, and prospecting. And so our belief system will be proven either right or wrong, but our belief system is that by doing so and allowing them to list their cousin's house and doing things like that, or even the past clients that unfortunately didn't call the team to do their second transaction, called the agent to do their second transaction, we're at least thankful that happened. Because obviously the business didn't earn the relationship. We didn't keep the relationship long term. So at least it came there. We are allowing them to earn more on that. And by doing so, we believe we could recruit more agents, scale the team to what our goals are, which are eventually 150 agents in San Diego County is what we want, 30 agents in 5 different locations within the county. And so that's the prediction, right? That's the hypothesis, is that by having them work both sides and rewarding their prospecting to a larger degree, we'll be able to scale a little bit easier and faster.
Yep. Yeah. No, and I love it, man. I did something similar about 4 years ago, and it, you get to a point if you don't allow them to evolve and don't have kind of a progressive split model, because they get to a point where they're like, dude, I don't need you for your leads anymore. I've got my own book of business and I know how to generate my own leads, but they still want to be a part of it. Like my team was more of that revolving door until we have that. Now our retention is just insane since we've allowed that. And it becomes massive, man. So then, all right. So, and I totally get it. Right. But I still want to ask it. You've went out there and you've solved your own problems at such a high level that the world now sees you solving your own problems. And then of course, now the demand becomes of, hey, Daniel, man, I want to know what's inside your head so you can help me solve my own problems. And I'm sure that's somewhat what evolved into your training that you've created today. But talk to us what led the training, and then talk to us about what's included in the training and all of that, because I know you have just a killer program out there.
Well, I constantly always found myself on phone conversations with agents that have become friends from around the country that wanted to discuss something or talk through an issue, or they had an employee issue, a splits issue, or their retention was down. So they wanted to understand our culture. I mean, I was constantly on these conversations. So I knew that I could help. And more importantly, I loved the conversations. That's what I love doing. Okay. Business consulting. I love to do it. I love to go in, dissect it, figure out where the issues are, and put together strategies and solutions for it. And I love sharing what we have here in our company. I'm really, really proud of it. And so our training company, it's different probably from most any that are out there, because it's not a coaching company and not coaching, hundreds of agents one-on-one or any of that, because that sounds like a nightmare. So I'm not doing that at all. I do have a very small handful of private consulting clients where it's extremely hands-on. I'm literally like their non-equity partner in their business where, I have no equity, but I look like a partner almost. That's how hands-on I get. But because of that, it's a very small amount of people. The core of the business, it's called agentacademy.com. What the business is online training. And there's three programs on it right now. One of them is called CEO Agent Academy. And that one opens the kimono on literally everything we're doing in our business. All of the core systems and tools that we use in our business, it's all on display, from the selling systems to the people systems, the management, the accountability structure, how we run our meetings, everything, so that you literally have all the tools and structures and systems that we use for our business. It's allowed us to land on the Inc. 5000 of the fastest growing companies in America, right? So we have a lot to share there. It's like 54 videos averaging around 20 minutes. So it's actually point by point by point on here's everything that's going on. And something that's cool, and maybe you found this, there's a lot of training out there that tells people what to do, but very little that tells them how and why to do it. And it's really the how and the why that makes it come together and that makes it tangible for people to actually be able to implement. So we have that. We have a farming course. We farm 32,000 homes. We farm every single month, 32,000 homes with multiple touches. So we have a 5-week farming course that's out there now on agentacademy.com. And so again, it's all online training so people could take it at their own pace. And unlike most seminars or conferences or anything like that where they have to absorb all the information and keep it organized in their head, cool thing about online training, aside from being far less expensive than one-on-one, is you get to revisit the material as your business evolves, which is super cool. And we have our Agent Academy Inner Circle, which is a 90-minute hands-on training every single month where people get direct access to me on a 90-minute training video conference. And so there we're workshopping. Here's what we're doing now. Here's what we're seeing. Here's what our companies currently experiencing. So there it's sort of the hands-on, like ongoing implementation and evolution of the business. So that's what we're doing. It's all just been a lot of fun, actually. And it's amazing. It's opened a lot of doors, allowed me to meet a lot of really cool people. And the feedback has really fueled me. I'm sure, you have awesome products and really cool courses. And I've heard the feedback on your courses, so I'm sure you've heard the feedback. And that stuff just fuels me, right? I've got to think that happens for you, because when I get the feedback on ours, it's super cool. It really gets you up and going.
Yeah. What I love about
another sold house.
Yeah, for sure. Working with buyers and sellers is awesome, and even agents in our own team and having that impact on them. But when you get to the point where you're able to impact the influencers that are able to take that knowledge and grow their own teams and impact thousands of other lives through those vehicles, man, it's such a dope place to be. And what I love about it, man, not saying that somebody that hasn't done it before can't be still a successful mentor and coach. But I just made this internal agreement years ago that I no longer will hire anybody or take any programs from somebody that wasn't a doer, that hasn't built what I want to go out there and create. So what I love about programs like yours is, dude, I'm able to go to the guy that's done it, right? I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I go to the guy that's done it. Not just done it. You continue to do it year in, year out. So you're a practitioner. You've got your own sandbox. None of this is theory. And I'm able to learn step by step everything that somebody that has built exactly what I want to build has already done. And then I just got to implement, man. It's just freaking brilliant, dude. I love it.
And we're in it, right? It's your team is running right now, because there's also having built it 20 years ago.
Right. Yep. And there's no shortage of those coaches in this industry, right? And again, I'm not saying that they're bad, right? But for me, it's not a fit for me, man. I want to go to the doers, guys like yourself. So, all right. So the best place to go then is agentacademyonline.com. Was that the website?
No, it's just agentacademy.com.
Okay. Yep.
Agentacademy.com.
Perfect. And those watching and listening will have a link right below, so you'll be able to click that, check out more on that. There's
free videos there too. So it's every week there's a free training video out there. So
Awesome, brother. All right, dude. So, I created this podcast because I wanted to go out there and have an impact on an industry that's changed both of our lives, right? And with that being said, those that are here watching, listening to this right now are here because they want to go out there and create that amazing life that they know they want to create and deserve for themselves and their family. With that being said, do you have any last words of maybe advice or inspiration that you'd like to leave our listeners with so they can do exactly that?
Yeah, that's deep. I do. Whenever I'm asked anything like that, there's about a zillion things that zap through my head very, very quickly. But it really genuinely comes down to whether it's the training company or the way you're serving buyers, the way you're serving the way you're serving the people in your business. It's as soon as you can truly get your mind around the fact that if you just show up looking for who can I serve today and where can I deliver value, and it will come back so many times over, and that there's enough. I was asked very recently this morning. I was asked, why are you showing your entire farming methodology? That's how. And he wrote me a thing about how that's how I've been able to grow my business so big, and aren't I afraid people are going to take it in my industry? I said, that thought didn't even cross my mind of being afraid that people were going to take it in my industry. I know that showing up and delivering value is going to be something that forever protects me. Forever, right? And by forever protects me, I mean forever protects my ability to earn a living and to be relevant, because the world will always have need for value. So just show up, serve, and if you do have employees, really, really land on the idea and believe it, feel it, just know that you are truly there to serve them. If you show up to serve them, you're going to be amazed at what those people start to do. So that's the number one thing, value.
Yeah, powerful words, man. Powerful stuff. And those that are watching and listening, I know I end every podcast with this, but information without implementation is really just the start of delusion. Information is no longer power. It's taking that information, taking action on it that creates that power inside your life so you can create the life you want and deserve. And Daniel shared so many amazing pieces of advice with you guys today. Take something that you learned, take immediate action on it. And again, below, I don't care where you're at, below will be a link to his academy and contact information. So if you need to reach out, you can get in touch with them. So make sure to take action on that as well. And Daniel, man, I know you're a busy guy. Truly appreciate you taking time out of a busy day to be here. This is a lot of fun.
I enjoyed it. Thank you. You do a good job.
All right. Well, thanks so much, my friend. It means a lot. And all right, you guys, we will see you next time.